All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Big Discussions 76 Entertainment and Media. Let me see here what's going on. Yep, there I am live. So, for all of my superhero, Star Trek, Star Wars folks, everybody who's followed me over here for the Lord of the Rings and the Acolyte or whatever, for whatever reason you followed me over here, we're going to do a little bit of a book retrospective today, / a little bit of election talk, a little bit of Black history. So bear with me if you're not used to this. When I originally started this channel, I decided to multi-purpose it. And I am an aspiring author myself. Actually, I am arguably there right now, but I wanted to leave room to do book reviews and retrospectives. And so I created 2 pieces of content here on this channel regarding this book here, Our Kind of People Inside America's Black Upper Class by Lawrence Otis Graham. And as much as I've wanted to grow as a bit of a fanboy and a Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel guy, people keep coming to watch my content on this book. So this is a good time to acknowledge those people and reward those people and do a revisit once again of this classic work by Lawrence Otis Graham, Our Kind of People Inside of America's Black Upper Class. Okay, so let me make an announcement over on my original channel and then I will jump in. I'm going to try to keep this one nice and tight. I have a couple of passages that I want to read, and I'm going to show some things from the World Wide Web, and then I'm going to wrap this up because I have some things to do as it relates to my book. All right. So I'm going to like that. Oh, I'm on the wrong channel. I hope everyone is having a good Saturday thus far. Okay, so I'll give that a like here. I'm having this discussion on Big Discussions 76 Entertainment and Media. Yeah, books are media as well. A lot of folks don't read today, especially with YouTube and other technologies. And apparently when these digital devices, smartphones and the like were created, reading interest and proficiency went down in this country. So, but there are people who still read, and there are classic books like this one, Our Kind of People Inside of America's Black Upper Class. So I'm going to talk about this book a little bit and what it has to do with this current 2024 election season. I'm not telling anyone how to vote. I'm just going to address specifically, it's been raised here online that the Divine Nine are an overseer class. So they were put in place to shepherd the rest of the Black community or the Black race in the United States. So I'm going to ask that question to some degree and speculate on that a little bit. So I'm going to play my intro, and then I'm going to dive in on the other side. So I'll see you on the other side. And something happens during this battle that we had never seen in the cartoon series up to that point, which was some of the characters started dying. So that's what I think that episode was about. I think it said a lot. I think it was speaking to quite a bit. And it goes back to, at some point, can a population of people based upon race, can they eventually come together and stop the fighting and stop discriminating against one another? And so they get into this dialogue where Sal says, look, this is my pizzeria. If you want to have your own pizzeria, you can get your own pizzeria. But for now, in Sal's, there are only Italians up on the wall. Hierarchies, distinct classes, distinct sects of people. Sex, S-E-C-T-S, not S-E-X. Distinct groups of people where some people have access and some people don't, where some people are accepted and some people are not, when some people, that's a part of us as a species. That's a part of us as a race. And it's always been there, even if nobody's talking about it. Instead, bigoted anti-hero Archie, played by Carol O'Connor, and his dingbat wife Edith, played by Jean Stapleton, along with their rebelliously progressive daughter Gloria, Sally Struthers, and son-in-law Mike, i.e. Meathead, Rob Reiner, mined comedy gold out of hot-button subjects such as racism, rape, immigration, gun control, and homophobia. But Lieutenant Savick wanted to do everything by the book. She knew all the regulations, she knew all the rules, and she knew all of the standard operating procedures for Starfleet. Welcome to Big Discussions 76, Entertainment and Media. Here I discuss media of all kinds, movies, TV shows, favorite characters, book readings, retrospectives, sometimes music, all media, all of it. All right, everyone, this is Big Discussions 76, Entertainment and Media. On this channel, I cover all things media. Recently, it's been Star Wars, House of the Dragon, Star Trek retrospectives, all kinds of things. But I did initially start this channel with the intention of doing some books as well. Because a lot of our media, our movies, our television shows, a lot of those come from books. Okay, so it starts with a writer's idea and putting those ideas on paper. And then that's when you get your movies and your TV shows and your cartoons or whatever. Okay, so today I want to do a short, hopefully a short, well, depends on who comes through. I suspect, like the other two installments, this will get a lot of views afterwards. And if you do, please consider subscribing to the channel. I don't cover this all the time, and also please smash the like button if you are not subscribed. But I wanted to thank everyone who continues to watch that content regarding Lawrence Otis Graham and his timeless work, our kind of people inside of America's Black upper class. So, if you're watching on the playback, if anyone wants to make a donation to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are here. And please smash that like button if you are not subscribed. Okay, I have a couple passages from this book I'm going to read. I'm going to give a brief introduction to Mr. Graham, and then I'm going to talk about some of the election business. Again, I'm not telling anyone who to vote for or what to do, but this is all kind of all of this goes together. The current election, the Divine Nine, whether or not they were put here to shepherd the rest of the Black race. If it's not something that's being talked about out in the real world, it's definitely something that's been talked about here online. And I didn't start thinking about that until I came to the digital spaces. So this is our kind of people inside of America's Black upper class. It was written by the late Lawrence Otis Graham. These are some pictures of Mr. Graham. Oh, I thought I loaded up that other one, but these are, this is the first book of Mr. Graham's that I ever read. That's him as a younger man right there, member of the club, Reflections on Life in a Racially Polarized World. So I found that book on one of the shelves of the downtown Buffalo Public Library. I think I was an undergraduate, and it just looked interesting to me. And my former stepfather, who was a bit of a political activist, a bit of a conscious political activist. Actually, he was a bunch of different things, but I brought that home, and he kind of turned his nose up at it. This he said, "Oh, this looks like something this looks kind of bougie. This looks kind of like it's, you know, those uppity black people, you know." So he wasn't impressed with it. He wasn't happy with it. I thought it was interesting, and yeah. So Mr. Graham stayed in my gray matter ever since then. He wrote another book called Invisible Man, where I think he went undercover as undercover might not be the right word, but he went undercover as a server and a caddy at a golf course, okay, that did not allow black people in. I think that was the basic synopsis of that story. And so it was about penetrating and getting access to high society. Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong if you're watching this on the playback. So this is the book here. That will be this talk will be centered on Our Kind of People Inside of America's Black Upper Class by Lawrence Otis Graham. Now, I first heard about this book in the mid 1990s. I was an undergraduate at Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's a small HBCU. Shout out to Marcus Williams. You always talk about Michigan in your content, but you never talk about JCSU. By the way, Representative John Lewis was the commencement speaker at my graduation. We're going to get into some good trouble. I got my head beaten in on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That's from Jason Black of the Black Authority and the New Black Media. But Tavis Smiley hosted Mr. Graham on his show that night. And also on that panel, I think, was Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. Okay. And he was not happy with the book because it celebrated high black society. It celebrated the old guard. It celebrated the right families and the right schools and I just saw myself go out. My give me a second here. I'm getting my antenna thing. Okay, so Dr. Michael Eric Dyson was not happy with the book, so there was a bit of a back and forth between Mr. Graham and Dr. Dyson. But I think that was reflective of Black society at large, because what we're seeing right now, and something that we've always known, is that the Black community, foundational Black Americans, ADOS Black Americans, whatever you want to call us, the descendants of slaves, we are not a monolith. Okay, there are multiple groups inside the one complexion. Okay, and I think we're really, really seeing that right now. Let me make sure. Okay, there's me. And we're really seeing that play out right now in this 2024 election. And I am going to get to that. So Our Kind of People Inside America's Black Upper Class. It talks about the Boulay, the Lynx, Jack and Jill, the Divine Nine, the different Black elite groups or cultures in our major American cities, their vacation spots, where they went to school, what churches they attend. All of that is captured in this book. And as I said in my previous two offerings regarding the book, coming from a lower middle class family in Buffalo, it was valuable to read about this because I didn't know that there were Black people like that. I mean, I saw the Cosby Show growing up. We all saw the Cosby Show, and there were debates over whether or not the Cosby Show was real, whether or not that was achievable, whether or not that was feasible. But we did not specifically talk about the Black elite. There were hints of the Divine Nine in Buffalo, but it was in a very, very educational and enlightening book for me. And I wish that I had learned about that at a much younger age. All right, so this is Mr. Graham and his family. After I read the book, I pretty much forgot about Mr. Graham and his family as I got into graduate school. But I think once all the social media platforms came online, one day I was strolling Twitter and I saw this image here, and people going back to us not being a monolith. This might have been shortly after Mr. Graham died. This might have been around the time that happened, but I saw this picture circulating on Twitter. Okay. And with this picture, there were Black people disparaging Mr. Graham and his family, making fun of him and his children and the way some of his sons, his two sons look. Okay. And so this is a depiction of a family of the Black elite. Okay. Mr. Graham looks very polished. He's got his suit and tie on. His one son has a suit, a tie and a jacket and khakis. His other son is wearing a button-down shirt and a sweater vest. His daughter looks like she's primed to become an AKA. His wife, in the book, interestingly, his wife was not a part of the Divine Nine when they got married. And Mr. Graham stated in the book that he was not a part of the Divine Nine because Princeton University did not allow fraternities and sororities on campus. And I guess he never did grad chapter afterwards. But that's him and his family. And when you think about the Black elite, those are the kind of people you want to think about. Okay. And why would Black people be disparaging him? Because again, there are different aspects of the Black community. You have those type of families, old guard Black elite families. Then you have working class families. Then you have lower, poorer families, right? And they're not the same. They don't all have the same values. They don't all congregate in the same places, and they don't see each other as being similar. Okay. And we're seeing that play out right now. So we just showed another fascinating aspect of what's happening right now regarding Madam Vice President Harris is we just saw a Black family is this. Okay. One of the things that's being highly scrutinized regarding Madam Vice President Harris is this: which lineage does she come from? Which lineage does she actually claim? Whose tribe is she a part of? Okay. Is she a Black American? Is she Black? Okay. Or is she Indian? Or does she identify with a specific group when it's convenient, when it's good for her poll numbers? That's another controversy that's taking place right now within this whole thing. All right. So the Divine Nine and who is responsible for the Black vote. So what I will say before I jump into this even further is that one of the things the internet did, and one of the things that these social media platforms did, is that they democratized or maybe even deregulated the dissemination of information. Okay, so before the coming of Facebook and Twitter X and YouTube, you were kind of restricted to what was in your immediate surroundings and in your family circle, and what the mainstream news outlets were showing you and showing us. Okay. So going back to Black people not being the same, and Black people thinking differently, not being a monolith. One person I did not hear a lot of or anything about growing up was Dr. Claude Anderson. Okay. Dr. Claude Anderson was in the Carter administration. Okay. He was over education, I believe, for the Carter administration, but he also has an expertise in economics and finance as well. And he's really been pro reparations, okay, which is kind of at the heart, in part at the heart of this current election, because one of the questions now, there's a segment of Black people who are saying no reparations, no vote. Okay, so this gentleman was kept pretty much under the radar for most of my childhood. Okay, and I didn't know anything about him until Dr. Boyce Watkins. And Dr. Watkins has his share of critics and detractors until Boyce brought Dr. Anderson to the forefront. Okay, Dr. Anderson wrote Powernomics. Where's my copy of Power? Yeah, my actual physical copy of Powernomics is around here somewhere. I don't know where it is, but he wrote Powernomics, right? And he also wrote books like The Black History Reader. And he also wrote books like Black Labor and White Wealth. Okay, so what's the significance of these books, and what's the significance of Dr. Claude Anderson? Well, the significance is that if you listen to his content and his teachings, one of the things he's pro reparations. He's really gung ho about reparations. He talks about migrants and people from other lands being buffer classes and being brought to the United States to replace the Black vote. And he also talks about voting as being a racial and a team sport. Okay, so his teachings, that type of thought process, when you start thinking about those things, that goes against something like vote blue no matter who. That goes against something like we have to vote for Democrats because the Republicans are bad. It's more of a tangibles. It's more of a tangibles based way of looking at voting. What are you offering? If you're not offering me anything, you're not going to get my vote. If you want my vote, you have to offer me something. Okay. And the United States owes reparations. Okay. I'm not going to get too deep into that. That's a very touchy subject. But my point is that with the coming of the internet, information was disseminated that was not disseminated before, and it has challenged older ways of thinking, and it has challenged traditional control dynamics. So now you have a lot of our previous generations. I'm thinking about the Black boomers, my mother's generation, my dad's generation, my aunts and uncles. They would vote Democrat just because that's what you should do as a Black person. But now you have people thinking and asking, well, wait a minute, what are we getting for this vote? Do I agree with the policies? What are the policies? How is this going to help my people? Is this going to help my people? What's the best thing for my people? What am I getting for my vote? People are asking that now. And again, that's part of there's a suspicion that much of this immigration is to weaken and ultimately replace the Black vote, because younger Black voters are thinking a lot differently than the older Black voters. Okay. All right. T. Riddler, thank you for stopping through. I see BGS had to crack the whip yesterday on his in his chat. I don't know what you said, but I saw he had to crack the whip on you. All right. So I'm going to read a few passages from this book, but before I get to that, I'm going to show some things here as it relates to this election. Now, this morning, I just got another email from a member of the Divine Nine. Okay, again, in doing this stream, I'm not disparaging the Divine Nine. Okay, but apparently there's going to be a fundraiser for Madam Vice President Harris in Martha's Vineyard. Okay, I'm keeping this anonymous, but I'm going to read this off. This is just before the Democratic National Convention. Let's see, ticket level. Let's see, there are $350 tickets, $1,000 tickets, $2,500 tickets, $5,000 tickets, and $6,600 tickets. This is a fundraiser for Madam Vice President Harris in a very, very prestigious coastal town. I think that's actually mentioned in the book. So the Divine Nine has been very, very, particularly members of Alpha Kappa Alpha and Alpha Phi Alpha. They have been out front, really, really advocating for Madam Vice President Harris. She is an AKA. That's been highly publicized. Okay, so where does she stand now? Going back to the Black community not being a monolith, and that really bubbling to the surface during this election. Okay, where does she stand now in terms of support? Let's see. I'm just going to highlight this particular link. And you all let me know. Well, those of you who are there, let me know what you think in the chat. T. Riddler, if you have thoughts on this. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. I saw it last night. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna enable my screen share. T Riddler, you still out there? Are you still out there, T Riddler? T Riddler, you still out there? Okay. Because my computer is doing a thing right now. Just before I go on, I just want to know if you can hear me and if you can see me. All right. Let's see. 11:16. It's now 11:18. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Now, anything? Anybody? Okay. All right. So yeah, I got the antenna thing going on here, and then I had the spinning circles thing going on. Okay. So this is not a good computer morning. Okay. So let me sprint through this and finish this up. All right. I'm gonna have to edit this on the back end. Um. So this piece from Newsweek, this little piece from Newsweek says this. All right. All right. This is not okay. There it is. There it is. All right. This reads as follows. This one little part. When looked at more closely, the data shows that Harris's support among Black voters could play a large role in her surge, with the poll showing she has more than doubled her lead among the voting group in the past 2 weeks as her campaign hits full swing. In the recent survey, 73% of the black demographic, with Trump at 20%, giving the vice president a 53-point lead. I'm going to read that again. In a recent survey, Harris had the support of nearly 3/4, 73% of the black demographic, with Trump at 20%, giving the vice president a 53-point lead. So polling data, I'll probably do a stream on my main channel tomorrow because I'm going somewhere in the middle of the week. What's interesting about this is that the Democrats, as our country is constituted now, their coalition typically needs 90% or more of black voters. Okay. So one question looking at that data is, can she win only having 73%? Okay. Can she win with the black vote being decreased by that much? Again, some folks have peeled away to Donald Trump and JD Vance. And then there are a lot of folks who are staying home and taking a knee because they're not being offered the tangibles that they think they should have. Okay. And there are other reasons why people have peeled away. But can she win with that number? And then the other thing, in terms of polling and statistics, black people are only 13% of the total population. Okay, so we're just over, we're kind of like a blip in the total demographics of the country. So can she win with a black vote like that? She's going to have to pull numbers from some other place if that doesn't change. I want to show something else here. I want to show something else, and I thought I bookmarked that. Let's see. Well, I'll show this for a second just for laughs. This is my this is one of my favorite clips of Kamala dancing. Kamala. She's dancing with some little girls. Right. This is one of my favorites right here. She's having such a good time there. Fair use. But what's funny is that white gentleman with the gray hair in the back. He's trying to dance and do the step as well with Kamala likes dancing, man, and she really gets into it. But I really enjoy this clip. But check out that white gentleman right there in the back. He's having a good time. I was looking for something else. I thought that I bookmarked it. Let me go to my likes, which are fortunately hidden by Twitter X at this time. So people can't go trolling and scrubbing through your likes. People will do that. So I will probably do a stream on this tomorrow on my original channel, but be mindful and be careful of the polling data that you follow and that you watch, because not everybody is telling the truth. So this is from Rasmussen. And this tweet says, see any polling on August 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th, except for ours. It's almost like it's coordinated or something. So this is polling data that they've put out. And this shows, let's see. Yeah. So Rasmussen is the only one. Actually, no, it doesn't. It does go up to August 7th. But most of these show Kamala in the lead right now. And the Rasmussen, there's a video where they do a moving average of the polling data. And they basically present this. So their data, okay, and I'm not telling you guys who to vote for. Their data is showing, using a moving average, that's what they use in the stock market, they're showing President Trump in the lead. Okay. So the polling source you look to, whoever's reporting those numbers, that's going to matter as well, because not everything is going to be, just like with the regular news, not everything's going to be communicated in the most honest and transparent way. Okay. So that's out of the way. Again, the black community is not a monolith. And I think we're seeing that play out right now. Okay. So the groups that have been very, very vigilant about getting Kamala the support she needs, and at least in the black community, have been the Divine Nine around 2020. You saw this picture here circulating of these lovely Divine Nine members here. Those are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha, pink and green, Delta Sigma Theta, crimson and cream, Zeta Phi Beta, blue and white, and Sigma Gamma Rho, blue and gold. Okay, so all very lovely ladies wearing their colors, wearing their masks, strolling to the polls. So this picture was circulated to gin up and really, really rev up the black vote in 2020 in support of President Biden and Kamala. Okay, and I guess it worked. So, but the question now is, for their efforts, will their efforts generate the same results? And also, one of the questions that came up here in the YouTube streets is, are they an overseer class? Are the Divine Nine, are they an overseer class designed to shepherd and influence the masses of black people? Okay, I did some reading in Our Kind of People last night, and I have a couple of passages that I'm going to read, and then I'll probably wrap the stream up unless there are more people here who want to say something. So this, and I wrote an essay on this a couple of years ago. Mr. Graham's book was a major influence for this. If you all want to read this, this is below in the description box. A discussion on economic and social class in the black community. That quote there was taken from a passage I'm about to read. Okay, this link is in the description box in case you want to read it. Okay. This is from chapter 1 of Our Kind of People, the origins of the Black upper class. So again, we're thinking about, has one class been put in place to control those below it? All right. All my life, for as long as I can remember, I grew up thinking that there existed only two types of Black people: those who passed the brown paper bag and the ruler test, and those who did not. Those who were members of the Black elite and those who weren't. Okay. You here in DC, you see the Black elite. You see members of the Divine Nine. You see high-ranking members of government. You see it. It's all here. I recall summertime visits from my maternal great-grandmother, a well-educated, light-complexioned, straight-haired Black Southern woman who discouraged me and my brother from associating with darker-skinned children or from standing or playing for long periods in the July sunlight, which threatened to blacken our already too dark skin. You boys, stay out of the terrible sun, great-grandmother Porter would say in a kindly, overprotective tone. God knows you're dark enough already. As she sat rocking, stiff-lipped and humorless, on the porch of our Oak Bluffs Martha's Vineyard yard summer home, she would gesture for us to move further and further into the shade while flipping disgustedly through the pages of Ebony magazine. Niggers, 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 she'd say under her breath while staring at the oversized pages of text and photos of popular Negro politicians, entertainers, and sports figures who were busy making Black news in 1968. I'm going to skip down. Even though it was 1968, a period of unrest for many Blacks throughout the country, great-grandmother, like the blue-veined crowd that she was proud to belong to, seemed at times to be totally divorced from the Black anxiety and misery that we saw on TV news and in the papers. In public and around us children, her remarks often suggested that she was satisfied with the way things were. She often said she didn't think much of the civil rights movement. I don't see anything civil about a bunch of nappy-headed Negroes screaming and marching around in the streets, even though I later learned that she and her church friends often gave money to the NAACP, the Urban League, and other groups that fought segregation. She said she didn't think much of Marvin Gaye or Aretha Franklin or their loud Baptist music. When we are going to get beyond this low, when are we going to get beyond all this low-class Baptist spiritual sounding rock and roll music? Even though she would sometimes attend Baptist services, she was proud when a Black family finally won an Academy Award, but was disappointed that Sidney Poitier seemed so dark and wet with perspiration when he was interviewed after receiving the honor. So you can see there some of the complexities of the Black elite. And Mr. Graham's great-grandmother, she was light-skinned, blue-veined, didn't quite identify with her darker brothers and sisters, but in some instances supported them. So she was kind of in both worlds. Where are we seeing that today? She's kind of in both worlds. And if you sit in different parts of the Black community, you'll hear that about other parts of the community as well. That was a powerful opening passage. But I'm going to skip to chapter 5 on page 86. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Chapter 5 is entitled The Right, not the conservative right or the Christian right, but the right fraternities and sororities. So even within that world, there are two prominent fraternities, and there are two prominent sororities out of all of them. And he doesn't mention the screen did the thing again. For you Iota Phi Theta guys out there, he doesn't mention you in this book. Okay, so I wrote down page 86, the second and third paragraph. So page 86, I'm almost done here because I have to go and see about getting my book through the out to you all for those who want to read it. Let me see if I can see myself on YouTube. All right. I'm having a mediocre computer day here. Okay, page 86, the second and third paragraph. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Okay, this reads, while some argued that there was too great a dichotomy between young fraternity members who focused on socializing and older fraternity alumni who were using their efforts to advance the Black agenda. Okay, older fraternity alumni who were using their efforts to advance the Black agenda. Okay, both groups were often attacked as supporting elite organizations that further divided the larger Black community into the privileged and the working class. Okay, by the late 1950s, when many of the fraternity members, students as well as alumni, had gotten involved in the Southern Civil Rights Movement, a greater solidarity developed between members and non-members. They had a common cause to fight for, whether they were operating on mostly Black or mostly white campuses. Okay, so even back then there was a feeling that these organizations were uppity and privileged and separate from the rest of the struggling masses. So my notes here say go to page 90. Okay, this is going to talk about the AKAs a little bit, and it gets to why. So first of all, our Madam Vice President, she is an AKA. She's an Ivy, pink and green lady, right? And immediately after she ascended to become the presumptive nominee, you saw that sorority push really hard to raise money and gin up support for her. The link was sent around. I think they raised $1.3 million in addition to the men that week. Okay, so why would they push so hard? I mean, that's she's one of them, but why would they push so hard? So, okay, I'm going to pick up here and I'm going to read a few paragraphs. Please comment. Let me know what you think there. If any of this resonates with you. Okay, quote unquote, these groups can enhance every aspect of our lives, says Dr. Eva Evans, the AKA Grand Basilius, a title used for the highest ranking officer in the sorority. When Evans says this, I know for sure that she would appreciate my Aunt Phyllis's dedication. As head of the country's oldest Black sorority, Dr. Evans also seems like someone who can't imagine why not every accomplished young Black woman would want to be shrouded in the pink and green colors of the AKA sorority. If you visited us on the World Wide Web, or if you looked at some of the web pages that our AKAs have at Harvard, Wellesley, and elsewhere, you'd be very impressed with what our sorors are doing. She says, when asked how active the 90-year-old sorority is on prominently white campuses. After all, the old AKA was once epitomized by the stereotypical Black doctor's or judge's daughter who went to Howard or Spelman before marrying well and settling into a life of quiet volunteerism. But Evans doesn't play into that stereotype. As a college sorority, we've always advanced in educational agenda. We always had high GPA requirements. And more than ever, we're pushing the importance of math and science for our girls. We need more Black women in those fields, adds the breathless Evans, who lives in Lansing, Michigan, and holds a PhD in administrative higher education. Of course, that's not to say that we don't have some top AKA sorors in those areas, like the astronaut Mae Jemison. I didn't know she was AKA, and the former Secretary of Energy Hazel O'Leary. Okay, how about in government? I asked Evans, testing her almost encyclopedic memory of where every prominent soror is at every moment. Oh, please, she responded, as if I were some sort of amateur. Some of the most powerful women in government, are AKAs. We've got plenty of state officials and mayors like Sharon Pratt Kelly in Washington, Congresswoman Cardis Collins, Congresswoman Edie Bernice Johnson, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. But Evans adds after pausing briefly, we don't have a U.S. Senator yet. Somehow Carol Moseley Braun got snatched up by the Deltas. Okay, we don't have a U.S. Senator yet. I don't know for sure, but I think Madam Vice President Harris might be the first AKA senator. That's her and Senator Alex Padilla. Alex Padilla succeeded her. Gavin Newsom chose Alex Padilla to succeed the Madam Vice President when she was picked as Joe Cool's running mate. Now, Ant Dog, I see your comment there. Are you still there? I'm going to get to your comment. This election is complex, and they're all playing chess. Okay, so we're all looking at the candidates and the polling numbers and the amounts raised, but behind the scenes, the parties, they're planning for 2028. They're planning for 2032. So, well, no, they're from the same state. I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if Gavin Newsom is the nominee in 2028 if he doesn't pick Alex Padilla as his running mate. But then you'd have two California candidates on the same ticket. T. Ruther says, Doc, Diddy. T. Ruther, what does that mean? Do you mean Diddy? Okay, I'm going to read one more paragraph, Antog, then I'm going to get to your comment. And can you be specific, Antog, about how do I feel about frats? Okay. I'm going to get to that. He says, to understand the history of the fraternities and sororities of the Black elite, one must both recognize the reason for their existence and understand the comparisons that are often made between them. Even though officers like Evans have a daily agenda that focuses on developing programs, monitoring legislation, and raising funds to benefit members and their international causes, there is an obvious undercurrent among members that causes these students and past graduates constantly to measure one group against another. Unlike whites who can choose between more than 50 national fraternities and sororities, I didn't know that, with only a vague sense of how one group differs from the others, the Black elite has a clear sense of which Black frats and sororities among the National Pan-Hellenic Council have a strong presence and which ones don't. Okay. Okay. Ant Dog, your comment. How do you feel about frats, Doc? You know, I'm like Mr. Graham. I didn't join one, even though I've said this on my channel. My father is a member of one. I think if I'd gotten an early enough start being exposed to it, it might have taken a little more root in who I am. I think as undergraduates, once you go over, you can have a lot of fun being a part of one, but they also do have mission statements and they have things that they're looking to do in ways in which they're trying to benefit society. But as all described, Alpha Phi Alpha definitely, they all have personas they all definitely have personas and images, and Alpha seems to have placed a lot of men in public service and in government, as I'll describe next. I don't know now, going back to the online voices, specifically the new black media, the quote unquote, someone mentioned Roland there in the chat, the new black media, Professor Black Truth, Jason Black, the Black Authority, they've described them as an overseer class. So in other words, they were put in place to oversee and herd and shepherd the rest of black people. I didn't see any language in this book about that other than them looking to achieve things and achieve big things. But yeah, that's what I would say about that. Yeah, I don't know how discreet or open I should be about this, but I do, to my father's defense, because one of the things I'm realizing is that he didn't, and there are reasons why. So one thing about these organizations is they have to pay dues. They have to pay dues every year. So you have to pay money to join. You have to go through your you have to get on a line and pledge. Okay, when you join, in some places, pledgees have been really, really abused. We've heard stories about that. In some places, not so much. Apparently, grad chapter is not as bad. Okay, but even after you go over and you set off into your career, you still have to pay dues. You're still expected to pay dues. And a lot of members become non-financial, quote unquote. Okay. And depending upon what those members have going on in their lives, depending upon what their bills are, they may not be able to afford the dues. Okay. And so then you have what's called a reclamation effort, where members of the organization try to go out and get people to come back in the organization and to become financial. So I think there are advantages to being a part of these organizations. And Mr. Graham talked about that in the book. When you're a part of certain organizations in certain circles, doors open up for you and you have access to certain rooms. And when you're not a part of those organizations, you don't have access. And even relationships, even romantic relationships. I think that, I don't know. I know the high ranking men do it. The men who have political aspirations and the men who want to hold public office or even ascend to the C-suite of their companies, they have to get married. Okay. Kevin Samuels talked about that. And I think it's pretty well understood. They have to get married. And I think so they're a little more choosy about who they marry, and they probably target other women from the Divine Nine. But I know for sure that women in the Divine Nine, they could be very, very choosy about whether or not you get chosen if you're not a part of that group. Okay. So that, Ant Dog, to make a long story short, it matters. Depending upon where you live, depending upon which circles you're running in, that matters. All right, I'm at an hour. So I want to T Riddler, putting me on the spot. Doc, did you ever consider joining a frat, and what was the factors that encouraged or discouraged your decision? So when I was at SUNY Rockport, that's a state school in upstate New York near Buffalo and Rochester. There was, I'm going to try to be discreet here, there was an Alpha line. And I thought about it because two guys from Buffalo were bros in that particular chapter. My camera just did that thing. Okay, this might be a sign to shut up. All right. And I thought about it, but I was encouraged. Just focus on your schoolwork, son. If you want to do something grad, you could think about it then. But they did. I think 4 brothers went over that semester, that spring semester, and I ended up leaving that school the next year. And then when I got to my HBCU, I was just focused on my schoolwork. So T Riddler, there's your question. So I thought about it, and then again, it matters if you're not driven to do it internally. It matters who is around you to answer those questions and to encourage you to join. And I didn't really have anybody around me. And I should be discreet here. But you know what? The president of my alumni chapter of Johnson C. Smith University, shout out to Marcus Williams. You always talk about Michigan. You never mention Johnson C. Smith University in your content. The former president of our DC chapter and now the president of our NAA, our National Alumni Association, he told me stories about how his father was a Noop, a Kappa, and he had him and other young men were exposed to it and participating in it early in their lives. Okay, so I think, and so when they got to college, they knew what that was and they knew what it entailed, and they were immersed in the culture. No matter what you're doing, whether it's playing basketball, whether it's being a writer, whether it's being a scientist, whether it's pledging a fraternity, there's something to be said for being immersed in the culture versus being thrown in with very little guidance and not having any exposure to it at an early age. All right. The New Reconstruction podcast says, thank you for stopping through. Roland Martin, school choice is the black choice. Okay, I'm not sure. I didn't hear Roland say that. I'm not sure what that means, because school choice that tends to be anti-union, and the unions are usually democratic. Okay, Ant Dog says, I never joined either. I didn't really have the urge to do so. I kind of thought it was corny. I played college football, so that's where my mind was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, all sorts of factors determine whether or not you join. So it's a multifaceted thing. But New Reconstruction podcast mentioned Roland. Roland was helping spearhead the get Kamala elected effort. So he hosted that Zoom call with over 40,000 black men, and he was there. Maryland Governor Westmore came through, and there was even footage of them throwing up their alpha sign. So they really I think it was the Vote with Black Women thing. So they really galvanized and tried to get everybody behind, as many folks behind as they could to support her. All right, I'm going to read a little bit about Alpha Phi Alpha, then I'm going to wrap up. Okay, so page 91. And this is just to give an indicator as to how entrenched these two groups, particularly Alpha Phi Alpha and AKA, are into government and into public office. All right. Alpha Phi Alpha is the oldest of all the Black Greek letter college organizations, and it is the one to which most of my friends belong. Okay. So when you think about Mr. Graham, yeah, he kind of does have the Westmore, the Governor Westmore look, the Hakeem Jeffries look, the Barack Obama look. Yeah. So it's not a surprise that most of his friends would be from that frat. Founded in 1906, it was the only Black fraternity or sorority to have been started at an Ivy League school, Cornell University, even though there were fewer than a dozen Black students at the rural Ithaca, New York campus. Please smash that like button if you haven't. At the time, 7 Cornell men, now referred to as Alpha's 7 Jewels, formed the organization. So the other organizations were founded at Howard. Alpha Phi Alpha was the lone organization founded at a PWI. Quickly identifying themselves with programs that emphasize scholarship rather than mere social interaction, the Alphas launched in 1919 the national Go to High School, Go to College campaign to combat the 8th grade dropout rate of 90% Black children. The Alphas also contributed resources and manpower in 1935 to assist in the racial discrimination suit by Black Amherst College graduate Donald Murray, who had been rejected by the University of Maryland Law School because he was not white. Not only did the fraternity pay his school expenses, but the group also provided his attorneys, who were Alphas and well-known civil rights attorneys, Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston. The fraternity also gave support to a case that successfully challenged the practices of segregation at the University of Texas Law School when Alpha brother Herman Sweat applied for admission. So you can see they've been on the forefront of civil rights issues and gaining access to institutions. Today, the group has over 150,000 members with 750 campuses spread out over the United States, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the fraternity operates mentoring centers in 15 cities around the United States that serve as free after-school sites for inner-city teenagers. Some say the stereotypical Alpha is professionally ambitious, bookish, not overly gregarious, and quote-unquote safe. My father-in-law, who pledged Alpha in 1947, says he's the mensch, the nice guy that everyone wants his sister to date. I'm going to read one more paragraph. A veritable who's who in Black America. The membership has included such people as Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Atlanta mayors Andrew Young and Maynard Jackson, scholar W.E.B. Du Bois, former U.S. Senator Edward Booker, former Congressman William Gray, who now heads the United Negro College Fund, Olympic gold medalist Jesse Owens, Canaan Baptist Church head Reverend Wyatt T. Walker, Ebony Magazine founder John Johnson, New Orleans Mayor Mark Morial, Seattle Mayor Norman Rice, Parks Sausage founder Henry Parks, National Urban League directors Hugh Price, Lester Granger, and Whitney Young, Detroit Mayor Dennis Archer, San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. Oh, let's read that again. I forgot about that until I just read it. And this was back in the 90s. San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown. New York Congressman Charlie Rangel. U.S. Cabinet Secretaries William Coleman, Samuel Pierce, and Louis Sullivan, Congressman Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and New York City Mayor David Dinkins. So you can see they're all entrenched in politics. Mayors, congressmen, senators, Supreme Court justices, they have a history of being entrenched in politics. Okay, Willie Brown. What should I say about Willie Brown? Should I say anything about Willie Brown? I did not know he was an alpha. Okay, so that right there, I'm going to be discreet. I'm going to be discreet. The fact that he's an alpha, okay, that right there, it's easy for me to see how there would have been a connection between the two, him and Madam Vice President Harris. Okay, I'm not going to disparage Vice President Harris online because there's a permanent record and people will download this and rerun it, just like they're rerunning her unwillingness to do anything specific for Black people. So I'll just say that I didn't know he was an alpha until rereading this. When I read it the first time, I didn't know who he was, but now things kind of make a little more sense. T. Riddler says, wasn't Andrew Gillum and his wife both in the Divine Nine? You know what, T. Riddler? Let's take a look. We'll put that there. Andrew Gillum. Divine Nine. Yeah, T. Riddler. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. So once again, that particular organization is entrenched, has a history of being entrenched in politics and government. Let me see, Andrew Gillum. Let me take a look to see if are him and his wife still married after what happened? Yep, according to Google, they are still married. Jai Gillum. Let's see if she's a member. Okay. That what happened with him, that was a huge black eye. That must have been a huge black eye on the fraternity. And yeah, certainly on his reputation, people are always going to think about what happened with him and that voting thing, but that's got to be a huge black eye on the fraternity. And also with these political power couples, with what happened, it looks like they're still married, but for power couples, a lot of it is for appearances and for show. So I don't know. Again, I'm going to be discreet here. It says they're still married, but I'd be curious to see if they're still happily married, sleeping in the same bed, etc., etc. All right. New Reconstructionist podcast says Roland Martin has championed school choice for decades. He spearheads the school choice initiative and speaks all over the country. Thank you for sharing that New Reconstruction podcast. T. Ruther says she was his beard, quote unquote. All right. I think I'm going to read one more paragraph. This one is short. All right. We all knew about the famous alphas who were out in the real world, says my father-in-law, Albert Thomas, who joined while attending South Carolina State University. The Alpha brothers were always reminding us, since they had more socially conservative and academic agenda, I knew that's what I would join. Okay, so I'm not seeing that they were put in place specifically to herd the masses, but certainly those two organizations have been very, very involved and entrenched in politics. But what we're seeing now, I'll read this last paragraph and then I'll get to that thought. And then I'm going to wrap this up because I have to run. This is the last paragraph from chapter 5. Many of the old guard agree with Yates. Many of them recognize that what makes these organizations important and special is the high standards and the prominent members who belong to them. When I attend gatherings of frat brothers or sorority sisters, people who may not have known each other in college, but who share an identity that was formed there, I find myself recognizing that there are few institutions that are able to unify so many people for such lasting relationships. For this reason, the Black fraternities and sororities will endure regardless of how admission requirements might change. Okay. We have a Boulay sighting here. We have a Boulay sighting. Jacques Aldridge says Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boulay, all started these other fraternities. Okay, I have to wrap this up soon. So Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boulay, started all these fraternities. Thank you for sharing that. That might be buried deep in here somewhere. This book is 400 pages long, and it's an important book. Is Dr. Martin Luther King listed amongst these alphas here? If he's not, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Yeah, I read him. Okay. So, based upon this comment, Sigma Pi Phi, the Boulay, started these organizations. So even if it doesn't say that these organizations were started to oversee and shepherd the entire group, it's been speculated that that group, and I guess these by proxy, were started to oversee the rest of the race. But the question is, do they still hold sway? Is that the right way to say that? Do they still have meaningful influence over the entire group? What we're hearing, okay, so let me say this. Online is not the real world. It might be an indicator. It's an indicator of parts of the real world, okay? But you can't form your entire opinion based upon what you hear online. You have to ground truth things and see what people are talking about out there as well. So I can say what I'm hearing is that there's a distrust now of these organizations, okay? And the Black Authority has been very, very outspoken about they're more self-serving now, at least from a political perspective, than they are for the rest of the race. I didn't say that. The Black Authority said that. The new Reconstruction podcast. I have to be careful about answering some of these questions because you guys might put me in a very precarious position. Okay, how do you feel about Black folks supporting Kamala because she's Black? Then she picks. Well, okay. This is a softball. New Reconstruction podcast. If she picked, okay, if she picked someone else, if she picked Michelle Obama, she would have lost. Black folks would be like, yeah, Michelle's back in the White House. But that would likely have alienated a lot of white Americans. And remember, we're only 13%. They still make up the majority of voters. Okay. So that would have tanked her ticket. Excuse me. I feel like a sore throat might be coming on. Her picking Michelle or another Black woman, quote unquote, may likely have tanked her entire ticket because the rest of the country would have been like, well, we don't want a whole Black ticket. Same thing if she had picked a Black man. I think she needed. What are you proposing that she would have picked besides a white male VP, a white female VP? I think that wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think that would have gone well either. Maybe if she had picked an Indian, that would have. She's already doing some damage control on her heritage. So picking an Indian probably wouldn't have been a good idea, an East Indian. Picking a white woman, well, then, yeah, you're probably, then it looks like a Barbie movie female empowerment thing. So you probably would have alienated a lot of men there. So I don't see how she could not have picked a white male VP. Now, one of the questions is, did she pick the right white male VP? Okay. I thought she might have picked Alex Padilla, but because he's Hispanic Latino, but they're both from California. And when you choose a running mate, you want someone who's going to balance you out, but also someone who can help you out with the electoral map, which is why some people are scratching their heads about Tim Walz, because she was likely going to get Minnesota anyway. And it would have made more sense for her to pick, what's his name, Shapiro from Pennsylvania, because that's a swing state. And it's not guaranteed that she's going to get that yet. But even that was dangerous because of the Israel-Palestine thing. So maybe there was no easy choice here for her new Reconstruction podcast. He said, spit it out. Sometimes your throat starts feeling scratchy, and you know it's a sore throat coming, a summertime sore throat. New Reconstruction podcast says, we supported her because she's Black. She picked an old white man VP. Well, who else was she supposed to pick? Who else was she supposed to pick? What was she supposed to pick other than an old white man VP? I mean, so did Barack. Barack picked an older white man VP. Who else were they supposed to pick? You have to look at the entire demographics of the country. You have to look at the entire picture, not just one aspect. But yeah, let me know, and then I'm going to wrap the stream up. See, that would have our people would have said yes, like this. But would she have been electable if she had done that? Okay, how would the other ethnic groups? And again, we're only 13% of the population, which brings me back to my original point regarding this whole thing, regarding the Divine Nine. When they were doing their Zoom calls and raising that money, one of the things that occurred to me was demographics. Okay, so they're going to have the most influence over Black people. We're only 13% of the population. The most they could probably do is get her back towards the 90% Black participation, or the 19%, the 90% Black voter support on the Democratic side. That's the most they could probably do, because they don't have influence over Hispanics, Asians, white people, Arabic individuals. They don't have influence over that. So it's just, these are all things to keep in mind when you're looking at all this stuff and you're seeing we had a Zoom call and we raised $1.3 million, and you know, who's in control of the Black vote. So I think there's a growing distrust. I think there's a growing distrust of individuals who previously had power over the populace, over the electorate. And well, let's see what happens on November 5th. But I just wanted to do a revisit of this book, this very, very important book, this timeless work. Thank you, Mr. Graham, for writing this. This needs to be more so a part of Black history in the early grades. Okay. And I wanted to do this because people keep coming to this channel because of this book. So I hope that I've said something. I think these last couple of comments have been very, very educational. But I hope that for those of you who keep coming to my channel for my previous 2 offerings on this book, now you have a 3rd offering. Please excuse the technical glitches. I am due for a technology upgrade sometime soon, but sometimes there are glitches during these live streams. Let's see. So he wanted Hakeem Jeffries as her vice president. That would have been an unelectable ticket nationwide, in my opinion. T. Riller says, speak for yourself, New Reconstruction Podcast. You support her because she's Black. No, T. Riller, Mr. Graham died. And let's see. Mr. New Reconstruction Podcast, I don't know. Did you support her because she's Black? Because that's one of the big controversies now as well. I'm not going to unpack that whole thing right now, but that's, people are really duking it out over whether or not she's Black and who she identifies with and who she supports. Okay. No, T. Riddler, Mr. Graham died in Lawrence Otis Graham. Mr. Graham died in 2021. So just, well, kind of towards the back end of the world health crisis. I'm not going to say it here because YouTube is finicky about what's said and what's not said. So, yeah, everyone, that's all I've got. Who is responsible for the Black vote? Well, certainly the most prominent Divine Nine organizations have been highly entrenched in politics, and they've been spearheading the Democratic side since the civil rights era. But I think, but are they still able to influence the masses of Black people? I don't know. I'm hearing some backlash, and I'm hearing questioning of them right now. So I think that's where we are right now. So it'll be interesting to see how this all wraps up. It'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. The New Reconstruction Podcast said, I did not support her at all. Vote for KH because she's Black is her campaign. Okay, so you're kind of being a little bit facetious there. The Equalizer has tapped in. I'm just wrapping up, Salty, but I think I am going to do something tomorrow because I'm going to take a break over the next 2 weeks. I think I'm going to do something tomorrow on my main channel about polling data and which polls to look at and which ones are being accurate and which ones are being deceptive and which numbers are being spun to shape public sentiment. So, all right. So hopefully this one is as successful as my other offerings regarding this book. This is a contentious time, and it's a question that people are asking. Do the Divine Nine organizations, who are they serving? Were they put in place to herd the entire race, to vote one way, to move a certain way politically? And do they still have that influence, or is their influence waning over the masses of Black people? And how much influence could they have? I think they could only raise the number back up to 90% to 100. But you know, they're Black organizations, so we're 13% of the population. So it would be restricted to our group, which is a minority. Let's see. Illegal border crossings equal slavery / low wages, cheap labor. Yeah, everyone, my message, I'm going to wrap this up. Look at the policies. One of the most encouraging things about what we're seeing right now is we're seeing people ask the question, what are the policies? What policies are you promoting? What policies are you championing? And it's directed mostly at the Harris campaign. People want to know, what are you looking to do? How would your presidency affect my pocketbook and my economics? What are you doing about the border? Those are all questions that are going to have to be answered, and people are looking for those answers. And many people feel like that she's being hidden in the basement, just like President Biden was in 2020. So there we are. All right, everyone. Thank you for those of you who hung out in the chat, even with the technical things that were happening. I might have to go through and work my my editing magic on the back end. But this is Big Discussions 76 Entertainment and Media. Again, lately I've been doing a lot of movies and TV shows and those things, but I had to return to this gem for this one. So please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. Well, you can't leave a super thanks over here because I don't have enough subs. But also the link for my newsletter is in the description box. And look out for an announcement soon for my book, The Engineers of Western New York basketball story. There's going to be an announcement coming very, very soon. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. If you're watching on the playback, let me know what you think about any of this in the comments section below. And with that, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye. Oh, see, I got the black screen again. I should have just signed off. T. Riddler says, the policy question is going to have to go both ways. Trump can no longer be vague and ambiguous about what his policies and plans are. Yeah, he's going to have to not do the ad hominem attacks. He's going to have to talk about more than the illegals and from mental institutions and prisons. He's going to have to do better about talking about his policies. Yeah. All right, everyone. I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Peace. Bye-bye.